Hey guys, this is Big Dave. It's time for your Unit 3 review. It's Morro Bay. It's a beautiful day out here on my deck, 70 degrees, light breeze, and I got my third child here to introduce you to. This is my best behaved kid right here. This is Spartacus Larry Bird Howell. All right, my first dog was Urban Magic Johnson Howell. He unfortunately passed away, so I'm trying to be fair to the Celtics too, even though I'm a Laker fan, but this dog is amazing. Watch this. Sparky, speak. Good boy. Sparky, sit. Good boy. Sparky, shake. Good boy. Sparky, play dead. Good boy. He is so incredibly talented. Okay, Sparky, thank you. Get out of here. Okay, so on your exam, you're gonna type up your vocabulary and the definitions. You are going to type up your study guide, the questions and the answers. And on your essay, give me two citations this time other than your book and me. You can use your book as a third citation if you want. Please type out those citations too at the end of the essay. So it says, from your textbook, study the following maps. Don't worry about the climate map and landform regions, but do the questions from the book. There are 4 of them. Where it says read about the drug war, that means write about it on the online class, okay? The other 3 questions also. Okay, additional hints mainly from the lectures. Okay, so what factors encouraged revolution in Latin America during the 1960s? Well, during the 1960s, the Soviet Union was funneling a lot of money through Cuba into Latin America, into Central America, that kind of fomented revolution. And whatever side the Cubans and the Soviets backed, we backed the other side. So there were issues in Guatemala, there were issues in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Chile, and lots of other countries. So what factors encouraged the revolution? It was corrupt dictatorships, no real democracy, uneven distribution of wealth. So really no hope for the future for many people, it appeared. So let's see, know the characteristics of plantations and haciendas. Plantations in Latin America, typically foreign-owned, would focus on like 1 or 2 crops like bananas, sugarcane, or cacao, or coffee. And they would be export-oriented. The crops would be sent to Europe or to North America. Haciendas, typically family-owned, produce a wider variety of crops. This is where you had resident labor and something called debt peonage emerge, where families became tied to the land as a result of the debt they incurred from the owner of the hacienda, or the owners of the hacienda. Where do you find the most Native American, European, and African culture in Latin America? You find a lot of Native American culture in Guatemala, pure-blooded descendants of the Maya. You find a lot up in the Andes, like Peru and Bolivia, descendants of the Inca. Lots of European culture, pure-blooded European culture, Argentina and Uruguay. A lot of African culture, a lot of that would be in the Caribbean coast of Central America, and the northern coast of South America. That's where a lot of plantations were located. What country produces great quantities of fuel from sugarcane? That would be Brazil. They produce ethanol. What country produces the most beef in Latin America? It used to be Argentina, now it is Brazil. How did Bolivia become landlocked? That means no outlet to the ocean. That was the War of the Pacific in 1873, where Chile fought a war against Bolivia and Peru. Chile won, and Bolivia lost its outlet to the sea, which is important. It'd be nice if they had a port. There have been ongoing negotiations on and off between Chile and Bolivia about creating a corridor. So far, I think no success on that. What countries make up the industrial triangle of Brazil? That would be Southeast Brazil. So it would be Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Belo Horizonte. They were all on the map that you made for me. The Llanos is a grassland in the interior parts of Venezuela and Colombia. The Pampas is located primarily in Argentina. It's a grassland where they raise a lot of beef and grow a lot of wheat. Altitudinal zonation refers to mountains like the Andes, where you have different climates at different elevations, therefore different crops are grown. So if you were near the equator in the Andes, from sea level to 2,500 feet, it'd be pretty tropical. It'd be called the Tierra Caliente. So you would grow crops possibly like bananas and sugarcane, cacao. I even saw rice being grown in the Amazon area along the river. The next zone up would be the Tierra Templada, the temperate lands. So there you would have coffee and wheat and maize, corn, right, and coca. The next zone up, 5,000 to 10,000 feet, Tierra Fria, the cold lands. Potatoes, manioc is a root crop, manioc. Barley might be grown at that elevation also. And you get to about 10,000 to 12,000 feet in the Andes. It's called the Paramos, Paramos. And grazing of animals, alpacas and llamas and maybe goats and maybe sheep. The next zone up, 12,000 feet on up, would be the Tierra Helada, the frozen lands, and not a lot of agriculture when you get that high up into the Andes. What country has the largest industrial base in Latin America? That would be Brazil. What do the terms mestizo, mulatto, and zombo refer to? In Latin America, mestizo would be a person that has a combination of Native American and European blood. You find a lot of that in Mexico, in Chile, Honduras, Nicaragua. Mulatto is the combination of European as well as African blood. You find a lot of that culture in the Caribbean region. Zombo culture, that would be a combination of Native American and African blood. You hear about that in northeast Brazil, a lot of that. Why do soils in the Amazon basin quickly lose their fertility once the rainforest is removed? Well, in the rainforest, you have a multi-layered canopy. It means the branches all kind of grow together in multi-layers. So the source of the nutrients for the soils in the Amazon basin come from the leaves above. When the leaves rain down on the forest floor, those leaves are broken down by soil microorganisms that releases nutrients into the moisture in the soil. Those nutrients are reabsorbed by the shallow root system and more leaves are made. So once you cut the forest down, the source of the nutrients are cut off. Plus, when the canopy's gone, the rainfall can beat down on the soils and cause something called leaching, where nutrients are taken down to deeper depths in the soil where they can't be utilized by the shallow root system. Or if you planted crops, the nutrients may be unavailable for those crops also. Plus, when it rains a lot, you can have erosion of the soils into many of the tributaries of the Amazon River. Okay, so when people farm, like in the Amazon, they might get 2 or 3 or 4 years unless they can afford fertilizers, and then the soils get kind of worn out. Then they'll go on and slash and burn another few acres and maybe put their animals on the land that's not good for growing crops anymore. Monroe Doctrine, Teddy Roosevelt Corollary, Good Neighbor Policy, and the Alliance for Progress. Monroe Doctrine, 1823, the United States shall protect the Americas from European interventionism. We didn't want too much European influence into the New World. It didn't work perfectly. The Europeans were in Mexico in the 1800s, as well as they took the Malvinas Islands, which the British call the Falkland Islands. And later in the 1980s, the British and the Argentinians fought over the Malvinas Islands. The Teddy Roosevelt Corollary, 1903, the United States felt it had a right and a duty to intervene in the Western Hemisphere when there was a loosening in what we perceive as the fabric of civilized society. What it really meant was we sent the Marines down whenever we felt like it, whenever we felt like there was any kind of a problem. Teddy Roosevelt's cousin, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, instituted the Good Neighbor Policy in 1932, which is a big change. We would try to work together diplomatically with our Latin American neighbors. That policy much more popular in Latin America than the Teddy Roosevelt Corollary. You can probably figure out why. The Alliance for Progress was 1961, John F. Kennedy, and it had 2 goals. It was to try to promote social justice, democracy in Latin America, and stop the budding revolutionary movements based on what happened in Cuba in 1959. So we spent billions of dollars down there trying to prevent communism from taking over countries and trying to make the situation better so that people would not want to join these revolutionary movements. What is the vegetation like in a savanna climate? That would basically be a grassland with a scattering of trees. It usually borders the rainforest. Maquiladora, those are assembly plants that initially started along the border with the United States in Mexico. So they would take in parts from the United States or Asia, and products were made and then imported back into the United States. We have a huge consumer market here, a lot of money to buy products. So they're assembly plants along the U.S.-Mexico border. Some of them have moved deeper into Mexico. as long as the transportation costs aren't too much. The labor costs tend to be cheaper as you go deeper into Mexico. Border towns like Tijuana can be fairly expensive. Let's see, in terms of labor costs. What are the populations and the growth rates for Latin America, Mexico, and Brazil? So Latin America, it is about 660 million people and growing at a rate of about, let's see here. What are we going to put this at? About 1.1, 1.2%. Mexico, the population about 130 million or so, growing at 1.1%. And let's see here, Brazil's population growth rate has gone way down, less than 1%. So they're less than 1% at about 215 million people. Where were the Aztecs, the Maya, and the Inca located when the Iberians arrived? Iberians meaning the Spanish and the Portuguese. The Aztecs were in the Valley of Mexico, where present-day Mexico City is located. Their capital city, Tenochtitlan, is right there underneath Mexico City. The Maya were primarily located like on the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, parts of what we now call Belize and Honduras. So you can call that Mesoamerica if you want, M-E-S-O America. The Inca were located in the Andes. The Treaty of Tordesillas was a treaty signed between Spain and Portugal in the 1400s, like 1494. Before much of the art had even been explored. It was signed and negotiated by the Pope to try to prevent a war between Spain and Portugal, fighting over this new world, this new land that had been, I guess, discovered, right? Understand the term Green Revolution. The Green Revolution in Latin America, like the 1960s, refers to an increase in technology in the agricultural sector. Herbicides, pesticides, new strains of crops, maybe even some machinery, right? So the Green Revolution, increase in technology in the agricultural sector. Understand the effect of the laws of the Indies on Latin American city structure. So the laws of the Indies in the early 1500s, it was a number of laws, but what I want to focus on here is city structure. The laws of the Indies dictated that there would be a main plaza in Spanish Latin America. There would be a church on the plaza, a Roman Catholic church. There would be a city hall, Cabildo would be right there. Church, city hall, any important government buildings would be right downtown there, as well as any commercial businesses tend to congregate downtown. And then those with money lived close to the plaza. And then it would get poor as you moved out towards the periphery. And you still find that in Latin America, where generally it gets poor as you move out towards the edge of town. In many Latin American cities now, there might be one main boulevard that will go out from the plaza, from the central part of the city, where you might have newer businesses and more North American style homes are built. So basically, the laws of the Indies dictated how Latin American cities would be set up, and those effects are still felt to some extent today. Where is the standard of living the highest in Brazil? That would be in the southeast part of Brazil. Forget about the matching section. Now be sure you watch the second video, the second YouTube video. It's going to help you with your essay. So remember, type the questions and the answers on the study guide. Be sure to type everything up. Okay? All right, hold on for the second video. See you guys.